On the 6th of January 2017, the Argus Co UK included a story headed "Hike in tax would pay for counter-terrorism and tackle sex crimes, says Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner." Does that mean that if Sussex taxpayers' representatives do not agree to the hike, Sussex Police will ignore terrorists and sex criminals? The Argus story heralded a meeting later in the month when the Commissioner would put before the Sussex Police and Crime panel her proposals for increases in the police's income from the council tax in the coming financial year. The headline reminded me of the equivalent meeting in 2014, at which the Commissioner had given us one of 2 or 3 reasons for wanting the maximum practicable increase in tax.
The other area is serious and sexual offences, and the proposal that the Chief Constable has given me around this is to invest in 36 serious SOLOs. What's the acronym for SOLO? You'll have to remind me here. Sexual Offence Liaison Officers, that's it. I love policing acronyms, but sometimes they even catch me out. So this is to invest in 36 Sexual Offence Liaison Officers.
The 2017 Argus story starts, "A hike in tax would pay for more police officers to protect Sussex from terror attacks and specialist teams to deal with sex crimes." That is the message from the county's Police and Crime Commissioner in a bid to raise the precept again by an average of £5 for Band D households, but it will not be introduced if the public do not agree. Katie Bourne said the 3.4% increase would fund 100 specialist officers. Firearms teams would fight terrorism. Others would tackle youth crime and help vulnerable youngsters. The complete list of targets in the newspaper story comprises terror attacks, sex crimes, youth crime, helping vulnerable youngsters, neighbourhood crime, organised gangs, repeat offenders, sex offences, child protection cases, historic abuse cases, antisocial behaviour and drug dealing. Towards the end of the story we have, "She urged everyone to submit their views before the deadline at midnight on Sunday," adding, "If the public do not want it, then I will not bring it in." Although early, indications of responses are showing the public mostly agree with the plans, she said. Sunday was in 3 days' time. The story was then followed by 22 readers' comments, mostly hostile. 2 entries had been deleted. This comment prompted the most approval. The police should start by stopping people publicly injecting drugs in Western Road and in the lanes. What about clearing up the hundreds of beggars that are now operating in the town centre? What about investigating burglaries? Perhaps the police should start carrying out basic policing and dealing with the issues that affect everyone in the city first, before asking for more money. I would be happy to donate money for a specific local project. I'm not interested in giving the police more money when they seem incapable of doing cheap, basic policing. 2 of the comments on the Argus story were mine. "She urged everyone to submit their views." How? Some days ago I tried to find One Way advertised, but it had been closed. The internet domain involved had something to do with Twitter. After reading the Argus story, though no one had told me how, I tried to submit my views again, as I'll be explaining. Bourne's lies about the HMIC value for money report last year I examined in a YouTube video called "Katie Bourne, 2 Statements and 2 Answers, if last year means the year before last." The concluding conditional clause covered my ignorance. A subsequent quick check suggested that the 91-page 2015 report had been republished with 4 more pages in 2016. Later I added another comment in a feeble 0-scoring attempt to increase the public's interest in what councillors and county employees do in their name. Anyone can see extracts from a previous meeting at which the Commissioner changed her pre-initial election approach to taxation by viewing a YouTube video called "Sussex Police Want More Money." The Sussex Police panel is hosted by West Sussex County Council, and when in 2016 I wanted to make 2 complaints about the panel, I found that complaints have to be channelled through the council. As my website records, my first complaint started at the July 2016 meeting of the panel. In answer to the only question from a member of the public, the Commissioner seemed to be lying on more than one occasion, and the members of the panel were too diffident or too ignorant to raise objections to what the Commissioner said. My email was answered by the Senior Advisor, West Sussex County Council Democratic Services, who acts as a sort of shepherd to the panel. His democratic advice to me was, "The issues you raise seem to be a matter of interpretation. The statutory complaints process is not really set up to handle such issues, and I'm not sure any outcome will be satisfactory to you." It wasn't. But at least, I thought, statutory constraints do not disallow me an opinion on the proposed increase in my taxes. The Argus story had included the sentence, "Take part in the consultation online." So, on the morning of Sunday the 8th of January, I took to the internet. Sussex PCC Gov UK had a latest news link, which accessed Sussex PCC Gov UK Get Involved, which had a Get Involved list. No sign of the poll I wanted being evident, I clicked Previous Polls, which took me to Sussex PCC Gov UK Get Involved Previous SPCC Polls. In the right-hand column of this page was Latest PCC Poll, and under that, Follow Us on Twitter. I presumably clicked the address at the bottom to be faced with this, which said, "Click to take part." Click what? A hypertext link on a web page usually takes the form of underlined text, differently coloured text, or a graphic. This graphic produced a much larger picture of the prima donna. Have Your Say produced a seemingly endless list for people, beginning with the BBC. The other subheadings, like Latest and More, I was not prepared to explore, so I reverted to the previous page. I then tried the blue bit text string, which after initially finding the destination inaccessible, took me to Sussex PCC Gov UK Priorities Budget, with a picture of coins and information which I did not need. I gave up. I do not attribute my failure to vote on my own ignorance. I started writing computer programs at a time when they had to be saved on cassette tape for use by sixth form students, and currently use 2 operating systems on 3 mid-tower PCs built by myself. I mention this because in 9 days' time a Sussex Police Panel meeting is scheduled to decide whether or not Sussex council tax is to be increased. If the Commissioner on January the 20th uses the poll as a basis for a tax increase, as she did at the equivalent 2014 meeting, it should be declared invalid as a measure of public opinion. The 2014 meeting gave a sad picture of local democracy at work. I'll end with 5 more brief clips from it.
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor St Pierre, James Walsh, and obviously from Councillor Brad Watson, Councillor Warren Morgan, Councillor Paul Wotherspoon as well, and there are substitutes appointed for a number.
As a Conservative, for me, raising taxes it shouldn't be done. We should be putting money back into people's pockets. They're hard-working. I was elected on a mandate to freeze the council tax last year, and I stand by that. We've done quite an extensive public consultation around this, and we've had 67% of respondents are in favour of an increase. And of that 67%, 90% agreed with the proposed increase of £4.95. For me, I'm here to represent the public, and the public are saying, yes, we're behind you on this one. Yes, we're happy to do this. That for me is the most important thing.
An online survey was sent out to local authorities, who apparently were responsible for putting it online. 1,991 people claiming to live in Sussex are said to have agreed, and 992 are said to have disagreed. Were police employees allowed to vote, and their partners and children and friends? And what about members of community safety partnerships, some of them panel members, who rely on police money, controlled by the Commissioner, for their funding? The current number of police employees would not be markedly different from the 5,500 of a couple of years ago. The only other survey was this garbage produced by Sussex Police themselves, using public money in the hope of brainwashing the public. I cannot make sense of this. 883 people who didn't put down the phone were asked by the police if they would be willing to pay a sum of money which, as far as I understand the system, relates roughly to a Band D property. Some people do not pay council tax. Some properties are in lower bands, some in higher. As my two-bedroom property is Band E, if I assumed that Band E would require a higher figure, I might have agreed to a figure lower than expected, unless I had paused to think that paying council tax has nothing whatever to do with being willing to pay it. That 59% of Sussex residents would pay additional council tax if they did not have to, I find incredible. I wonder how the questions were framed. Was the bait the promise of a much better service?
Chair, my proposal is that the panel supports a precept of 3.6%, or a figure up to this amount, whichever is permissible without triggering a referendum.
Those in favour of Councillor Smith, duly proposed and seconded. Those in favour, please. Those against? 2. Any abstentions? 1. Right. That's duly carried. Yeah, that's duly carried.